Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Shivan Janna. This is Speed News. Let's start. Israeli army struck two rocket launching sites in southern Gaza after a projectile was fired from one of them. And this was the third time in the last 2 weeks that Israeli forces struck targets in Gaza, contributing to further tensions over an already fragile ceasefire. The Israeli military has also deepened its crackdown in the West Bank. On Monday, the IDF released a video of their operations against Palestinian militants in Jenin. The offensive comes a day after Israeli tanks rolled into the West Bank for the first time since 2002. And Israel's intensified campaign in the West Bank has drawn sharp reactions as expected. The International Committee of the Red Cross expressed its concern over the impact on the civilian population, adding that people were struggling to access basic needs such as clean water, food and medical care. The US sided with Russia twice at the UN as they sought to avoid any condemnation of Moscow's invasion of its neighbor Ukraine 3 years ago. Washington and Russia aligned first at the morning vote at the UNGA and then again at an afternoon vote at the UNSC. The two votes highlighted a seismic shift in the balance of power, as earlier Washington had steadfastly voted for resolutions that favored Ukraine and condemned Russia. And now it's the other way around. In the 193-member UNGA, the resolution drafted by Ukraine and supported by many European countries received 93 votes in favor, 18 votes against, and 65 abstentions. And among those abstentions were India and China as well, while the US and Russia voted against. United States has announced fresh sanctions against more than 30 Iran-linked vessels and people, including the head of the National Iranian Oil Company for brokering the sale and shipment of Iranian oil. The sanctions follow US President Trump's decision earlier this month to reinstate his maximum pressure policy of sanctions against Tehran. Announcing the sanctions, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent claimed that Iran continues to rely on a shadowy network of vessels, shippers and brokers, all of this to facilitate its own oil sales and fund its destabilizing activities, adding that Washington will use all available tools to target aspects of Iran's oil supply chain, and anyone who deals in Iranian oil exposes themselves to significant sanctions risk. French President Emmanuel Macron met US President Donald Trump at the White House on the third anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Macron warned that peace cannot mean the surrender of Ukraine, but said talks with Trump have shown a path forward despite fears of a transatlantic shift. Macron said Trump had good reason to re-engage with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And the two leaders said there was progress on the idea of sending peacekeepers to Ukraine, although the French president insisted on US security guarantees for Kiev. Macron said he would work with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who visits the White House on Thursday, on a proposal to send peacekeeping troops in the event of a deal. But he called on the US to back any European troop deployment as a form of security guarantee, saying they want a quick deal but not a fragile one.
Anybody want to ask a question or two? Is that a foolish question?
Elon Musk, in charge of the Department of Government Efficiency, has given a second chance to federal employees to reply to his mail, which was sent out with the title, "What did you do last week?" And he's renewed his termination threat in a post on social media. The tech billionaire condemned the employees' failure to meet the earlier deadline. And on Saturday, federal employees received an email from US Office of Personnel Management giving them time until 11:59 p.m. on Monday to submit approximately 5 points of what they've accomplished last week. Utterly trivial reasoning that the standard to pass the test was to type some words and press send, and expressed his disappointment on how still many failed. Elon Musk highlighted how in some cases they were urged by their managers. A small private plane crashed and caught fire near a region in Texas. Both passengers survived with minor injuries. The Starduster 2 aircraft was completely destroyed, with firefighters extinguishing the blaze, but the plane was beyond repair. Investigators say the pilot may have lost control after takeoff. The FAA and NTSB are now looking into the cause of the crash, with an initial report expected in the next 30 days. A military vehicle carrying 36 soldiers plunged into a 100-meter ravine in Narino, killing 9 and injuring 20. Officials say brake failure caused the late-night crash. Seriously injured soldiers have been airlifted to hospitals. The soldiers were headed to Narino, a region plagued by drug trafficking, for security operations. Authorities confirmed that this was an accident, not an attack, as Colombia continues to battle armed groups vying for control in the area. An investigation is underway. Pope Francis, who continues to undergo treatment for bilateral pneumonia, has shown a slight improvement. The Vatican, in a statement, said today there were no episodes of asthmatic respiratory attacks. Also, it said that oxygen that has been administered in recent days was given with slightly reduced flows and percentage of oxygen. However, it cautioned that considering the complexity of the clinical picture, doctors declined to decide on prognosis. On Monday evening, a few hundred faithful joined dozens of cardinals assembled in St. Peter's Square to recite the Rosary. The prayer for Francis, leader of the Catholic Church since 2013, was led by the Vatican Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin. Intrepid Maven 25.2, a bilateral exercise between U.S. Marine Corps forces and the United Arab Emirates Elite Presidential Guard, has concluded. The training aims to enhance interoperability, improves combat readiness and lethality, and strengthens the military-to-military partnership between the two countries. The 44th iteration of the annual Theatre Security Cooperation Event joint exercise Cobra Gold between the US, Thailand and other partner nations and allies has begun. Cobra Gold is the largest joint and combined exercise in the Indo-Pacific region, with over 10,000 troops from 30 nations expected to participate. The aim of the drill is to build interoperability, multilateral cooperative arrangements and advancing common interests. The first Cobra Gold exercise was held in 1982. China's military has started live fire exercises in the Gulf of Tonkin, Just days after Vietnam published a map marking what it considers its territory in the body of water between the countries. The drills follow Vietnam's announcement last week establishing a baseline used to determine limits to territorial waters in the Gulf of Tonkin. Vietnam's foreign ministry said the baseline was in compliance with the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea and that it would help protect and enforce its sovereign rights. China and Vietnam have long had a maritime agreement governing the Gulf of Tonkin, but have been locked in competing claims in the nearby South China Sea. Chinese aggression in the region has been growing. The final impeachment hearing of South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol begins in Seoul. As per reports, Yoon Suk-yeol was not present for the start of proceedings. If the court upholds the parliament's decision to impeach him, Yoon Suk-yeol will be removed from office in less than 3 years into a 5-year term. The verdict is expected by mid-March. If impeached, South Korea will have to elect a president within the next 60 days. Yoon Suk-yeol is also facing a parallel criminal trial over insurrection charges related to the martial law declaration. He is the first sitting South Korean president to stand trial in a criminal case. That case is expected to drag on well past his impeachment. In a major counter-terrorism operation, Pakistani security forces killed 10 militants in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province based on intelligence inputs about militant activity in the area. According to a statement from the Inter-Services Public Relations, the operation took place in the Bagh area between Sunday night and early on Monday. A sanitization operation is currently underway to eliminate any remaining threats in the area. The latest encounter comes as the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province reported 54 terror-related activities in February alone. Pakistan has witnessed a surge in terrorist activities, particularly in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan provinces, since the banned Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan ended its ceasefire with the Pakistani government in 2022. Three days since the roof of a tunnel collapsed in the South Indian state of Telangana, rescue operations to save the 8 trapped workers is still on. 6 teams of rat hole miners have arrived to assist in the rescue operations. These rat miners were involved in the successful rescue mission during the Uttarkashi tunnel collapse in the Indian state of Uttarakhand in October last year. The collapse occurred just 4 days after construction work had resumed following a lengthy hiatus. While some workers managed to escape, at least 8 workers are still feared trapped in the tunnel. Heavy seepage of water and mud has complicated rescue efforts. Concerns about the well-being of the 8 persons have escalated as nearly 60 hours have passed since a portion of the ceiling collapsed 13.5 kilometers inside the tunnel. A report by Reuters shows that Vietnam's goods exports to the US accounted for 30% of its gross domestic product last year, the highest share among US top trade partners. That makes the country highly vulnerable to reciprocal tariffs. The Southeast Asian nation experienced a surge in foreign investment after the first Trump administration started a trade war with Beijing in 2018 as foreign multinationals moved factories from China to its southern neighbor to avoid US tariffs. Only Mexico, which is facing explicit threats from Trump of 25% tariffs, has a comparable exposure. It ships more than 3 times more goods than Vietnam to the US, with the total value of its exports accounting for 27.6% of its larger GDP. Apple said it would spend $500 billion in US investments in the next 4 years. That will include a giant factory in Texas for artificial intelligence servers and add about 20,000 research and development jobs across the country in that time. $500 billion is expected spending includes everything from purchases from US suppliers to US filming of television shows and movies for its Apple TV Plus service. The company declined to say how much of the figure it was already planning to spend with its US supply base, which includes firms such as Corning that makes glass for iPhones in Kentucky. The move comes after media reports that Apple CEO Tim Cook met President Trump last week, and many of Apple's products that are assembled in China could face 10% tariffs imposed by Trump earlier this month. A report suggests that Chinese companies are ramping up orders for NVIDIA's H20 artificial intelligence chip due to booming demand for DeepSeek's low-cost AI models. The surge in orders, which is being reported for the first time by Reuters, underlines NVIDIA's dominance of the market and could help alleviate concerns that DeepSeek might cause a slide in AI chip demand. Smaller companies in sectors like healthcare and education are also purchasing AI servers equipped with DeepSeek models and NVIDIA H20 chips. Previously, only deep-pocketed financial and telecoms firms bought servers with AI computing systems. Brent crude oil traded above $75 a barrel in early Asian trade today. Oil prices rose for a second day as fresh US sanctions imposed on West Asian producer Iran increased concerns supply might tighten and as global refining margins remained strong. The US on Monday imposed new sanctions on more than 30 brokers, tanker operators and shipping companies for their role in transporting Iranian oil. US President Trump has said he wants to bring Iran's crude exports to zero, and that would be a significant development as Iran is the third largest producer in the organization of the petroleum exporting countries, pumping around 3.2 million barrels per day in January. Manchester United have been restructuring and cutting costs since British billionaire Jim Ratcliffe paid $1.3 billion for a 25% stake in the club last year. He made around 250 roles redundant in a first wave of savings last year, and the club said that there would be no further layoffs. But now, as part of what United called a transformation plan, the club participates and they anticipate that approximately 150 to 200 more jobs may be made redundant. Ratcliffe will reportedly shut down the staff canteen at Old Trafford and replace the free lunches currently on offer with fruits. They plan to save around $1.26 million a year with this move. Former Real Madrid manager Jose Mourinho has been accused of making racist statements by Turkish football side Galatasaray. Mourinho, who is currently the coach of the team, was accused of racism after his team played out a 0-0 draw against their Istanbul rivals. Galatasaray has so far not cleared which statement of Mourinho they are referring to. And the 62-year-old Portuguese manager is also yet to respond publicly to the allegation. There is speculation that the accusation is based on Mourinho's post-match comments after the Monday match, where he said that the Galatasaray home bench had been jumping like monkeys.